He had been doing this for 7 years. 7 years of handshakes and strategy meetings and late nights with the team. 7 years of being the person everyone trusted with the numbers, the plans, the deals that hadn't been announced yet. And for most of those 7 years, he was also stealing from them. My name is Daniel Rowe. I found out in 21 days. This is what happened. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at my desk in Chicago, going through invoices from a case I'd closed 2 months earlier. Old habit. I review closed cases the way some people reread books, looking for things I missed the first time. The work phone rang. Unknown number, which meant a referral, which meant a new case. Is this Clearline? It is. My name is Helen Marsh. I'm the CEO of Axon Labs. I knew the company. Mid-sized software firm out of Austin, Texas, about 240 employees. They built enterprise mobile applications, workflow tools, internal communication platforms, project dashboards for large corporate clients. Not a flashy company, the kind that wins contracts through reliability. 12 years in business, a good reputation. I'm listening. We've lost 3 major clients in the last 14 months. 2 of them went to the same competitor, a company called Vertex Mobile. In both cases, the client said Vertex's proposal was more competitive, but not just cheaper, specifically cheaper. Their bids referenced features we hadn't publicly announced, architecture decisions that were still in internal documents, and pricing that undercut ours by amounts that felt calculated. Calculated. That word landed and stayed there. When a competitor underbids you by accident, the numbers are round. When they do it by design, the numbers are precise. They know exactly how much margin you have because someone told them. Who touches the bid documents before they go to the client? The product team, pre-sales engineering, and Marcus Webb. He's our head of product strategy. He coordinates everything. Every proposal routes through him before it goes up the chain. How long has Marcus been with you? 7 years. He's one of our most trusted people. 7 years is a long time to be trusted. It's also a long time to learn where everything is kept. I told her I needed one thing from inside the company, an open contractor position with legitimate access to the product organization. She told me about a product audit engagement they'd been planning, process review, documentation assessment, broad access, real work they genuinely needed done. Perfect. I told her 2 people inside the company could know I was coming, her and her general counsel. Nobody else. Not HR, not IT, nobody. Do you think it's Marcus? I think his name came up 3 times in the last 2 minutes without me asking. She didn't respond to that. She didn't need to. Saturday, I built the legend. Daniel Cross, independent product audit consultant. References available on request. References that check out. They always do.
The Axon Labs office was on the 4th floor of a glass building near downtown Austin. Open plan, exposed concrete, a kitchen stocked better than most restaurants. Standing desks, 2 ping-pong tables that weren't being used at 9 in the morning, but clearly were used based on a hand-lettered scoreboard near the windows. Tech office, designed to feel like it isn't one. I've noticed that the more effort a company puts into making the workspace feel casual, the harder people are actually working inside it. I arrived at 8:52. The receptionist gave me a contractor badge and a pre-configured laptop. The badge said, Daniel Cross, Product Audit, Contract. I was shown to a small glass-walled meeting room off the main floor, clear sightlines to most of the product team's desks. Either thoughtful placement or a coincidence. I decided to treat it as a gift either way. Marcus Webb came to introduce himself at 9:15. Early 40s, tall, well-dressed in the specific way of someone who decided how they wanted to be perceived years ago and locked it in. A quality watch, good shoes, and a kind of easy, warm manner that takes real effort to maintain over time. Daniel, welcome. Honestly, we're overdue for a proper process review. Things move fast around here. Documentation, well, you'll see. He gave me a 30-minute walkthrough of the product organization. 4 teams: discovery, architecture, delivery, strategy. He introduced me to 6 people. He remembered details about each of them, kids' names, recent projects, a vacation someone had just taken. He was very good at being liked. I made a note of that. Being very good at being liked is a skill. Like most skills, it can be used for different things. I spent the first week doing what I always do at the start of a case. Watching. Not documents, not systems, people. Who eats lunch with whom? Who steps into the stairwell to take a phone call when there's a perfectly good meeting room available? Who stays after 6 when there's no visible deadline pressure? Who laughs at the manager's jokes, and who does it a half-second later than everyone else, like they're catching up to a cue? Marcus ran his team's weekly sync on Tuesday afternoons. He was organized and precise in those meetings. He pushed for specifics, dates, not estimates, numbers, not impressions. And he had a particular habit with bid documents. He always wanted the final versions routed through him directly before they went anywhere else. Stated reason, quality control. He wanted to make sure Axon was presenting its best work. Unstated consequence. He was the last person to touch every proposal before it left the building. I also noticed what he didn't do. He never left files open on his screen when he walked away from his desk. Everything lived in folders named with codes rather than project titles. He cleared his browser history at the end of every workday. I could see it from my glass room if I timed the glance correctly. Sensitive conversations happened in person, in the smaller kitchen on the east side of the floor, or on his personal phone, which never left his hand. 7 years. He'd had 7 years to figure out where the cameras were and where they weren't. The other person I was watching was Priya Nair, senior product manager, late 20s, sharp, fast, and quietly frustrated in the way of someone doing excellent work inside a system that isn't rewarding it. She and Marcus had a dynamic I couldn't fully read yet. Professional on the surface, but there were small moments, a meeting where she'd started to raise something and then stopped when he looked at her a certain way. A budget request she'd submitted twice. Both times it came back declined. No explanation, just declined. I noted her, not as a suspect, as a resource. People who've been ignored long enough start to notice things no one else does because they've stopped pretending not to. In my second week, I got access to the product organization's budget records, standard scope for an audit of this size. Nobody flinched when I asked. Axon Labs ran 3 categories of spending: client project budgets, internal infrastructure, and what they called product development initiatives, PDIs. Internal investment in new concepts, features, research, prototypes, the kind of exploratory spending every tech company needs to stay ahead of the curve. Marcus controlled PDI allocation. He proposed the projects, approved the budgets, and reported outcomes to Helen quarterly, completely reasonable for someone in his role. There were 11 active PDI projects in the system. I cross-referenced each one against the product roadmap, the engineering sprint logs, and the design team's tracker. 9 of them matched. Real projects, real teams, real output. 2 of them didn't. Project Horizon. Budget $94,000. Project Relay. Budget $61,000. Both approved by Marcus. Both with descriptions that sounded credible. Exploratory research into cross-platform architecture. Feasibility study for enterprise API integration. Vague enough that anyone without deep technical knowledge wouldn't know what questions to ask. Specific enough to seem legitimate. No deliverables on file. No team assignments. No engineering tickets. No design specs. No meeting notes. No emails. Just budget approvals and expenditure records showing the money had left the company. $155,000. 14 months. 2 projects that had never existed. I closed the laptop, sat back, looked out through the glass wall at Marcus Webb's desk, at him sitting there, coffee in hand, reviewing something on his screen, completely at ease. That's the discipline of this work. When you find something that looks exactly like what you've been searching for, the instinct is to move. The training is to slow down. I needed to know where the money went. Budget records show that money left an account. They don't always show where it arrived. I spent 3 evenings on the payment trail, working in my glass room after the floor emptied, pulling vendor payment records, tracing disbursements through the accounting system as far as my contractor credentials would reach. Project Horizon's budget had been split across 4 payments, 3 to real contractors whose work I could verify. The 4th, $38,000, went to a vendor called Bridgepoint Consulting Group. I ran them that night from my hotel room, registered in Delaware, 22 months ago, services listed as technology strategy and product advisory, a website with 3 pages of corporate language, no client names, no case studies, no team bios, the kind of website you build when you need something to point at but don't expect anyone to read. Project Relay told the same story, 2 large payments to a vendor called NX Advisory Partners, also Delaware, 18 months ago, same kind of empty website, no verifiable output for Axon Labs anywhere in the file system. I cross-referenced the registration documents for both companies. Different director names, names I didn't recognize, but the same registered agent, the same small firm in Wilmington, Delaware, the kind of firm that specializes in setting up companies quickly and quietly. 2 shell companies, same setup firm, both receiving money from budget lines Marcus controlled, neither with any verifiable work product. That was the theft. But there was still the leak, the stolen bid documents, the 3 lost clients,
the competitor who kept arriving with numbers too precise to be guesswork. On day 11, I got access to the document management system. Marcus approved it himself, without hesitation. Which told me something. Either he was confident his tracks were clean enough to survive a review, or he underestimated what a patient person could find. I was counting on both. The system logged access events, every file opened, every download, every export, standard for a company handling client-sensitive proposals. I pulled the logs for the 3 lost client bits. All 3 had been accessed by Marcus in the 48 hours before submission, expected, consistent with his role. But on 2 of them, there was also an export event, not just an open, an export, the full document converted to PDF, downloaded to a local drive. Both exports happened after 6 p.m., both from Marcus's workstation, both on evenings when the floor was mostly empty. The 3rd bit and no export event. He'd varied his method, a screenshot maybe, a phone photograph of the screen, old-fashioned but it leaves no system trace. That meant he knew the system was logging exports, he'd made a risk calculation on the first 2 and then course-corrected. That kind of operational thinking doesn't develop overnight. He'd been doing this for a long time before he started making adjustments. I still needed the connection to Vertex Mobile. The expert logs showed information leaving Axon. I needed to show where it was going. I found it in a financial disclosure from 4 years ago, when Axon had gone through a financing round. Marcus had filed a standard conflict of interest disclosure. Among his listed assets, a passive equity stake in a technology advisory LLC. Small, probably seemed insignificant at the time. That LLC had been acquired 18 months ago. The acquiring company was a holding entity. The holding entity had 2 operating subsidiaries, one of which was Vertex Mobile. He had a financial interest in the company he was feeding their secrets to. He'd never disclosed it to Axon Labs because after the initial financing round, there was no ongoing requirement to update it. He'd found the gap in the compliance calendar, and he parked something there. 2 schemes, running simultaneously. The ghost budget funneling money out through shell companies, the bid league feeding Vertex the information they needed to win, which made his stake in them worth more every time they did. 1 man, 7 years, 2 revenue streams running quietly under a reputation everyone trusted.
I met Helen Marsh on a Thursday morning, a hotel lobby in downtown Austin. Neutral ground. She arrived 3 minutes early. I was already there. I talked for 15 minutes. 2 ghost PDI projects, Horizon and Relay, with budgets totaling $155,000, dispersed through 2 shell companies he controls, both registered through the same agent, both with 0 verifiable work output. Document logs showing him exporting bid files after hours on 2 of the 3 lost client proposals, and an undisclosed financial stake in Vertex Mobile through a holding entity that acquired his original investment 18 months ago. He's been giving them your proposals, pricing, architecture, timelines, everything they need to come in just under your number. Helen Marsh was quiet for a long time. 7 years. I know. He was in the room when we made half the decisions that built this company. I know that too. The clients we lost. Can we get them back? Move on, Marcus, before he knows anything is wrong and you have a window. Reach out to those clients with the full picture. Whether they come back is their decision, but they'll know the proposals Vertex gave them were built on stolen information. That matters to some people. How long were you inside? 21 days. She looked at me the way people look when they realize something they thought was solid had always been hollow, and they just hadn't known where to knock. I slid the folder across the table. There's a woman on your product team, Priya Neer. She asked the right questions about those ghost projects 6 months ago. Nobody listened. I'll make sure she knows we noticed. I walked out of that hotel into a warm Austin morning and took off the lanyard with Daniel Cross's badge and put it in my jacket pocket. 21 days, 2 schemes, $155,000 in stolen budget, 3 lost clients, 7 years of patient, methodical betrayal by someone who understood that the best place to hide is in plain sight. Marcus Webb made one fundamental error. Not in the scheme itself. The scheme was well constructed. His error was simpler than any of that. He believed that 7 years of trust meant 7 years of immunity. Trust and immunity are not the same thing. They feel the same for a long time, until someone walks in with a contractor badge and 21 days and nothing better to do than pay attention. 4 weeks later, Helen's office sent word. Marcus had been terminated. A criminal referral filed with federal authorities. 2 of the 3 clients had agreed to re-engage, and Priya Neer had been promoted to head of product strategy. The right people notice the right things. They just need someone to make it safe to say so.